In this lesson, we're going to look at the centerpiece of a JAXRS service. And that centerpiece is a POJO class. You can see it here. So I'm in the working file, predictionsrs.java. That's the name of the class. And immediately above it, at line 1, is a path annotation. So let me explain that right to begin. When this application is deployed, it's deployed, of course, in a WAR file, as usual. And in this case, the WAR file is called predictions3.war. That's also included among the working files. The path annotation at line 1 basically means that the URL that ends /predictions3/ so the second slash is that slash right there, will get you to this class, predictionsrs, the POJO class. So it's intuitive. What you're going to see, for example, if you just look ahead to line 4, you'll see for the method called getXML, there's an additional path annotation that is /XML. The meaning, again, is intuitive. /predictions3/XML gets you into this class, predictionsrs, and to this method, getXML. So basically, the path annotations are an intuitive way to show what the navigation is going to be. Let me return briefly to line 2. In previous versions of this service, I've had to set the servlet context. Let me just remind you that setting that context was necessary so that the application could read the data from predictions.db, the text file that's encapsulated in the WAR file. JAXRS adds a nice touch. They support so-called dependency injection with the annotation called @context. So by annotating this identifier, SCTX, of course for servlet context, I turn the task of initializing that identifier, that field, to the JAXRS runtime. I don't have to do it myself. It's a small touch, but it's a nice touch. Okay, let me return now to the various CRUD operations. All of them are annotated, for example, @get at line 3, and then @path. So basically this is the verb, and then the noun, if you like. @produces is used to specify what the response document type will be. In this case, it's XML. Another nice feature of JAXRS is that it automatically handles the generation of XML. I don't have to do anything except make sure that there's an appropriate library. In this case, the appropriate library is Jackson. Down here, at this particular line, the return line, you can see that there is a response type. That's a JAXRS type. There's an OK method. That will set, as you would guess, the status code to 200. I feed that the predictions list, specify the type that I'd like, XML in this case, and basically ask JAXRS to build that for me. Very straightforward, and as you're going to see, all of the CRUD handlers work essentially the same way. Down at line 7, there's an additional feature I'd like to review. This time in the path annotation, we have /XML, that part we've seen before, followed by, in braces, ID:, and the important part here is this is a regular expression for data validation. So the idea is straightforward. Suppose a client hits this service with /XML/27. The regular expression here, which basically says one or more decimal integers, this regular expression will ensure that there's at least one decimal integer, in this case 27. So this is going to go through. If, by contrast, a client were to say /XML/foo, that would fail the regular expression validation, and the client would receive a 404 error. All of this, again, is done automatically. So the data validation is a particularly attractive feature of JAXRS. At line 8, I show basically the same thing for JSON instead of XML. So you see here the same regular expression as above. Now let's look at the post verb. This one is particularly important because it allows a user to create a new prediction. So it's @post, as you'd expect. produces text plain. Basically, that's the confirmation. And down here for the path/create. Now this next part is particularly nice. You see there are two annotations called @form_param, one for who and one for what. Basically, this tells the JAXRS runtime to go into the body of the post request, to look for the keys named who and what, and to extract those values and to assign them to the parameters who and what. Very convenient, very high level. The rest of this then is pretty straightforward. For example, down here, should the user send a post request in which either who or what is missing, we can return on the fly, basically a bad request. Otherwise, we create a new prediction, we create a message, that's the confirmation message basically, and then send back that response. At line 10, you can see there is the @delete verb and the usual sort of logic you would expect. Let me wind up with one last note. We're looking here at line 11 at a method called toJSON. If we wanted, we could let JAXRS automatically generate JSON as well as XML. The problem is that this would impose a little bit of a burden on the client. The client would have to tinker with the HTTP request headers by injecting into those headers the desired data type. So in this case, application/JSON. The code to generate the JSON is straightforward. It's basically this line, which uses the Jackson libraries, object mapper, right value is string. So this takes a given prediction, turns it into a JSON document, which is then sent back to the client. So in my design, I decided not to automate the generation of the JSON, but rather to do it myself because it's so straightforward. So let me summarize. The centerpiece of a JAXRS service is a heavily annotated class of the type that you've just seen. JAXRS undertakes the automatic generation of XML and, if you desire, of JSON as well. It supports dependency injection in a very nice way. And even nicer, as far as I'm concerned, it supports data validation with regular expressions.